The power of now. Part 1. Accessing the power of now. There's a life force that runs deeper than all things we see, beyond birth, beyond death. Some call it God, but I prefer the word being. It is not a concept that the mind can wrap itself around easily. It doesn't reduce the infinite to something finite. Being simply is. It is the eternal presence that exists both around us and within us. You can't visualize it, own it, or name it, but you can feel it. You know it when you become still enough to notice the aliveness of your own presence. That quiet awareness that is being. Being isn't some distant force separate from you. It's within you, your innermost essence. But here's the key. You won't find it by thinking about it. The mind can never fully grasp being. It is only when the mind quiets, when you're fully immersed in the present moment, that being reveals itself as a direct experience. In that stillness, in the now, you meet your true self. This awakening to your essential nature is what we often call enlightenment. We tend to think of enlightenment as some extraordinary, mystical state reserved for monks or spiritual masters. But really, it's just a natural state of being fully aligned with the present. When you're deeply rooted in the now, there is no struggle, no fear, only peace. You become one with the flow of life itself. And although this presence is you, it's also so much more than you. It connects you to all that exists. Yet we've lost touch with this natural state. Most people walk through life feeling disconnected from themselves, from others, from the world. This separation is an illusion created by the mind. The mind, if left unchecked, becomes compulsive, obsessive, and noisy. Most people can't stop thinking, and they don't even know it's a problem because it's so normal. But this constant mental activity creates a false identity, the ego, and drowns out the quiet, still voice of being. We become entangled in our thoughts, trapped in stories about ourselves, our past, our worries. This mental identification builds a wall between us and reality. We no longer see the world as it is. We see it through layers of judgment, labels, and assumptions. And this veil is what causes fear, conflict, and suffering. So what's the solution? It begins with recognizing that you are not your thoughts. The moment you become aware of the voice in your head, the moment you can observe it without becoming it, a shift happens. A deeper awareness arises, and with it, a powerful realization. You are the witness. This witnessing presence is your true self, beyond mind and form. To begin this practice, simply observe your thoughts without judgment. Don't resist them. Just watch, like a silent observer sitting in a theater. This simple act of attention begins to dissolve the compulsive mind. Thought patterns lose their grip on you, and in the spaces between thoughts, a stillness begins to emerge. That stillness is the doorway to being. You will start to notice brief pauses, gaps between thoughts, where a deep peace arises. These moments may be fleeting at first, but with awareness, they grow. In these gaps, you're not thinking, but you're fully conscious. You are alert, aware, and profoundly alive. This is the beginning of freedom from the mind. To cultivate this state, practice bringing full attention to simple actions. When washing your hands, feel the water, the movement. When walking upstairs, feel every step. When breathing, just observe each breath. These small acts of attention pull you out of your mental stories and into the now. And in the now, the power of being shines through. There's one simple measure of how well you're doing this, your inner peace. The more you live in the present, the more peace you will feel, regardless of your external circumstances. Every time you stop identifying with the mind, your inner light becomes stronger. It is helpful to understand how the ego operates. The ego is a mental construct, a self-image created from past experiences and future expectations. It lives in time. It constantly replays the past or projects into the future. Rarely is it present. It says, when I achieve this, then I will be happy. Or, I can't be at peace because of what happened. But the truth is, the present moment is all you ever really have. And if you're not at peace now, you never will be. The ego also thrives on resistance, on problems, on drama. It needs conflict to maintain itself, and so it resists what is. But by learning to accept the present moment, even if it's difficult, we break the ego's grip. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It means acknowledging reality as it is. Only from this place of clarity can right action arise. A key point is that the mind doesn't only mean thought, it includes emotion. Emotions are the body's response to the mind. When you believe a negative thought, it triggers a negative emotion. The more identified you are with your thoughts, the more intense your emotions will be. If you can't feel your emotions, they will often surface later as physical symptoms: tension, pain, illness. To reconnect with your emotional body, place attention on the inner energy field of your body. Feel your hand from within. Tune into your chest or your abdomen. What's happening inside you right now? Don't analyze, just feel. Emotions are not the enemy. They are messengers. They show you the state of your inner world. Observing them without judgment brings them into the light of awareness. And what is brought into awareness begins to heal. By practicing this awareness, this deep presence, you gradually return to your natural state, a state of clarity, calm, and spaciousness. The more you abide in the now, the more you tap into an intelligence far deeper than thought. Creativity, love, and joy all arise from this space of stillness. Part 2. Relationship as Spiritual Practice. Relationships are one of the most profound mirrors for self-awareness. They bring up the unconscious, challenge the ego, and offer opportunities to grow in presence. While we often look to relationships for happiness or fulfillment, Eckhart Tolle invites us to shift our view entirely, to see relationships not as a source of completion, but as a spiritual practice. At the root of most relationship suffering is an unconscious search for salvation in the other person. We expect others to make us whole, to validate us, to fix the void we feel inside. But this expectation turns relationships into battlegrounds of blame and disappointment. When the initial infatuation fades, which is really a temporary disintegration of ego boundaries, our unhealed pain surfaces. We begin to project our unmet needs onto the other person. Tolle calls this the pain body, the accumulation of past emotional wounds that come alive in moments of conflict. The pain body seeks drama to sustain itself. In intimate relationships, it often gets triggered, drawing you into cycles of conflict. You might lash out, withdraw, criticize, or manipulate, and justify it all. But if you become present in those moments, you can see that it's not truly you who is reacting. It's the unconscious force of the pain body. The other person might be caught in theirs as well, and two pain bodies clashing can escalate quickly. Tolle teaches that awareness is the key to liberation. The moment you recognize the pain body as it arises, without judgment, you create space. You no longer fully identify with it. That small shift, that witnessing presence, breaks the cycle. This doesn't mean you suppress feelings or pretend to be peaceful. It means you observe what is happening inside you without fueling the story your mind tells about it. When both partners in a relationship can practice presence, a sacred dynamic begins to unfold. Instead of being entangled in egoic needs, both people begin to grow. Love becomes less about possession and more about shared being. You accept the other as they are, and you stop seeking something from them to complete yourself. True love, in this sense, is not need-based. It is spacious, unconditional, and rooted in stillness. However, Tolle is clear that you don't need to be in a romantic relationship to engage in this practice. Every interaction, with family, colleagues, even strangers, can become an opportunity to awaken. Each time you feel triggered or reactive, instead of blaming the other, turn inward. What are you feeling? Where's it in the body? Can you just feel it without the mental commentary? Even loneliness or longing can become doorways to presence. Often, when we feel a desperate need for someone else, we're trying to escape the discomfort of being with ourselves. But if we bring awareness to that discomfort without resistance, we may discover something deeper, the quiet fullness of being itself. In that presence, the neediness dissolves. This isn't to say that relationships should be free of challenge. On the contrary, challenges in relationships are part of the spiritual path. They expose the ego. They show us where we are still unconscious. A conscious relationship doesn't mean there is never conflict. It means that conflict becomes conscious. Each partner takes responsibility for their inner state. They use the relationship as a mirror, not a weapon. One of the central themes Tolle emphasizes is the importance of inner wholeness. If you're not at peace within yourself, no other person can give you lasting peace. They might provide moments of distraction, pleasure, or comfort, but eventually, your inner state will resurface. True harmony in relationship only arises when you are connected to the timeless presence within. So how do we begin? It starts by pausing, by noticing, by refusing to blame. Instead of saying, "You make me feel angry," we recognize, "There is anger arising in me." That small shift in language reflects a massive shift in consciousness. We stop being victims of our emotions and become observers. We stop feeding drama and start feeding presence. Another core practice Tolle suggests is to anchor yourself in the now, especially during conversations. Most people don't truly listen. They listen to respond. Their mind is already preparing a defense, a counterpoint, or a judgment. But if you listen with full attention, with your whole body, without the interference of your mind, you begin to hear more than just words. You connect with the essence of the other person. Even silence becomes meaningful. Presence also reveals when a relationship has served its purpose. Sometimes, part of honoring the now is recognizing when a relationship is no longer aligned with your growth. But if you leave with anger, blame, or guilt, you carry the pain with you. If you can leave or stay from a place of clarity and peace, the relationship becomes complete, regardless of its duration. Above all, relationship is not about what you can get, but about how much awareness you can bring. Can you love without needing? Can you see your own triggers as gifts for awakening? Can you honor the other person's journey without trying to control it? These are the questions of a conscious relationship. In the end, the spiritual purpose of relationship is to wake us up, not to make us comfortable. When used consciously, relationship becomes a sacred space where presence is cultivated, where old wounds are healed, and where the light of awareness dissolves the shadows of ego. This is not easy work. It requires courage, humility, and deep commitment. But the reward is profound. The birth of a love that is rooted in being free of fear, free of need, and filled with the quiet joy of presence. Part 3. Acceptance and Surrender. In the journey toward inner peace and spiritual awakening, two of the most powerful and transformative practices are acceptance and surrender. Eckhart Tolle emphasizes these not as signs of weakness or resignation, but as gateways into the power of the present moment, a portal to peace that exists beyond the mind's habitual resistance. Most people live in a constant state of inner conflict. They resist what is. They mentally argue with the present, clinging to stories about how things should be, how people should behave, how life should unfold. This resistance generates suffering, and it's rarely recognized for what it is, a refusal to align with reality as it is now. Suffering arises not from the situation itself, but from the mental story we overlay upon it. Tolle invites us to consider this. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. This doesn't mean you condone injustice or become passive. Instead, it means you drop the mental opposition to what is. You meet life where it is, not where your mind insists it ought to be. Acceptance is the first step. When something unwanted arises, whether it's a delayed flight, a chronic illness, or a difficult emotion, the ego immediately resists. It tightens. It says, "This should not be happening." But the moment you accept, fully, unconditionally, you stop feeding the emotional pain body. You become present. You allow the moment to be. In that space, new possibilities arise. Then comes surrender, a deeper letting go. Surrender is not about giving up. It's about giving in to the flow of life. When you surrender, you stop trying to force outcomes. You stop pushing against reality. Instead, you become aligned with a deeper intelligence, what some call the Tao, the universe, divine will, or simply the now. From this place of inner stillness, inspired action can arise. You're no longer acting out of fear or control, but from clarity. Surrender is powerful because it dissolves the ego. The ego lives by resistance, by the need to control. It fears the unknown, but presence, which is who you truly are, trusts. It knows that life is not against you, even when challenges arise. It recognizes that everything happening is part of a greater unfolding, one that the limited mind cannot always comprehend. Tolle explains that suffering persists as long as we resist what is. The moment we say yes to the present, fully, with our whole being, suffering begins to dissolve. Even pain becomes bearable in the light of presence. In fact, pain that is fully accepted is no longer suffering. It is simply pain, pure, clean, and free of mental commentary. There is a profound peace that comes when you stop fighting life. When you surrender, you become soft, open, fluid. You respond rather than react. You listen deeply to what life is asking of you, rather than imposing your will upon it. And paradoxically, in that surrender, you gain a new kind of strength, a strength not born of effort but of alignment. Sometimes surrender means walking away. Sometimes it means staying. Sometimes it means speaking out. Other times, it means remaining silent. It doesn't mean you become passive. True surrender is active. It's alert, conscious, alive. It's a dynamic engagement with life, rooted in stillness. You remain connected to the now, and from that connection, wisdom flows. Tolle illustrates this with simple, real-life situations. Suppose you're stuck in traffic. The mind immediately resists. I'll be late. This is ridiculous. Why does this always happen to me? But resistance doesn't change the situation. It only adds suffering to it. If instead you breathe, accept, and fully inhabit the moment, traffic and all, you enter a state of peace. Nothing has changed externally, but everything has changed internally. Or consider a deeper challenge, the loss of a loved one, a financial collapse, a diagnosis. These are not situations anyone would choose. Yet, Tolle emphasizes that even in great pain, there is the possibility of awakening. When you stop struggling against what already is, when you accept the fact of a loss, you create a space in which healing can happen. You no longer carry the weight of resistance. This is not about becoming numb or indifferent. In fact, when you surrender, you feel more deeply. You feel pain without drowning in it. You feel joy without clinging to it. You are fully alive and fully present, whatever the external circumstances. An important nuance Tolle offers is this. Acceptance is always of the present moment. You don't have to accept an unjust future or tolerate abuse. But you do accept this moment, this breath, this feeling, this situation as it is. From that acceptance, you become empowered to act with clarity. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It means you act without inner resistance. You become like a clear mirror, reflecting reality and responding to it, rather than distorting it through fear and desire. Surrender also invites a deep trust in life. The mind always wants certainty, it wants guarantees. But presence lives in the unknown. It doesn't need to know what will happen next, because it is rooted in the only thing that is ever real, this moment. When you surrender to the now, you stop postponing your peace. You no longer say, I'll be okay, when instead you say, I am okay now. In the deepest sense, surrender is the end of suffering. It's the moment you stop asking life to be different. You accept that this is what's here. You feel it. You allow it. And in doing so, you discover something miraculous. Beneath the surface of your resistance, there is peace. There is space. There is the quiet presence of your true self, untouched by the story, unharmed by the storm. This is not an intellectual understanding. It is something you feel, a gentle opening inside, a softening of the mind's grip. It's the moment when the compulsive commentary fades and you experience life directly. You may even begin to see that what you once called problems were invitations, doorways into presence. As Tolle reminds us, nothing truly real can be threatened. What is real, your being, your awareness, is beyond time, beyond thought, beyond circumstance. When you surrender to the now, you return to that reality. You come home to yourself. And in that space, life begins to flow with a grace you may have never imagined possible.